Welcome to the deep dive. We are incredibly excited today because we're launching our very first deep dive into contemporary literature, and we're starting with something really special.
We really are. We're focusing on the powerful speculative fiction that's emerging from Latin America.
And today's subject is Just. It's a groundbreaking book. It completely flips the script on post-apocalyptic stories and asks some, really profound questions about control, culture, and cosmic destiny.
We're diving into Bazga, a remarkable collection of science fiction stories by Rodolfo Báez, published back in 2022.
Right.
And while these stories, they confront environmental collapse and some serious technological nightmares, they are absolutely saturated with distinct Caribbean nuances and culture.
Which is what makes them so interesting. It positions them firmly within these growing movements like Afrofuturism and Caribbean futurism.
Right.
And here's the hook. This is the thing that just immediately grabs you and sets the tone for the whole book. Báez presents a future where the Dominican Republic, after surviving or, maybe even causing the near destruction of Earth,
Right.
it becomes the first colonizing power of the universe.
I mean, that premise alone is just, it
Real.
challenges decades of traditional sci-fi, where colonization is almost always seen through like an American or European lens.
Totally.
Baez uses all this futuristic tech and cosmic scope to reflect on historical realities, on cultural survival, and ultimately, the timeless flaws that are just inherent in humanity itself. It's an incredibly rich canvas to work with.
So our mission today is to really unpack this intricate text for you. We want to go beyond a simple summary and analyze its significance in Caribbean literature.
Yeah, we need to extract the core thematic warnings the author is giving us. Warnings about technology, the manipulation of history, and, the ultimate price of human avarice.
This is a deep dive. And to do it right, we have to start where the apocalypse begins, on a ruined Earth.
Let's start with that devastating setting, because it really is the foundation for everything that comes after. Baez just plunges us into this timeline that stretches from the 22nd century all the way to the 40th.
And the Dominican Republic we see here, it's almost unrecognizable. It's defined by what the book calls these intensely harsh and inclement conditions.
And this isn't just, climate change as we talk about it. It's more like ecological warfare.
Right. You have to forget that traditional image of a tropical island paradise.
Completely. The sources describe these devastating storms that are constantly produced by dust blowing in from the Sahara.
And that's coupled with the complete extinction of rain.
No rain at all.
It sounds like the world is just trapped under this permanent, suffocating blanket of heat and dust and dryness. Survival is like a daily desperate act.
And that environmental collapse, it forces this extreme societal division. You have these vast technological centers that are just filled with artificial life robots, drones, manufactured insects, even fish.
But then you have these few deeply resilient communities that are choosing to cling to the organic world.
Right, and that contrast brings us to the symbolic heart of this early part of the narrative, a place called Rancho Arriba.
Rancho Arriba. It's this astonishing, fragile green anomaly.
It is. While the rest of the country is completely digitized and artificial, the inhabitants there are clinging fiercely to traditionalism.
They're still cultivating organic land. I think it said they were shielded by these sophisticated plastic covers, right, to block the Saharan dust and the radiation.
Yeah, and they're raising organic animals. It's literally a pocket of life, protected from the environmental and, the technological sterility that's all around it.
And this survival isn't magic. It's the result of human ingenuity, of knowledge being applied correctly.
Exactly. The book spotlights Pablo Prieto, an agronomist, who is explicitly credited with keeping Rancho Arriba as one of the few green points on the planet.
And his success is based on applying very effective techniques for agriculture in extreme climates. So it's about elevating that traditional earth-based knowledge over the high-tech digital distractions that failed everybody else.
It makes the environment, the farm itself, a character in the story.
Yeah.
But even in this highly protected sanctuary, the emotional weight of what's been lost is just staggering.
Which brings us to the tragedy that really anchors this future. The story of Bobby.
The story of Bobby the dog is one of the most powerful thematic statements in the entire collection.
He's not just a dog. He's identified as the last dog in the country and on the planet.
The sheer rarity of that, an organic, non-human companion, a creature that we associate with pure affection. He gives the narrative this crushing emotional resonance.
The narrator explains the boy's devotion to Bobby, noting the dog became more important than food, games, and the telescreen.
But you have to remember the context. In this survival community, every single resource is measured against the community's collective life.
And the conflict comes up because the organic chickens are deemed one of the last hopes of humanity. They provide everything: eggs, feathers, meat. They're a sacred, protected commodity.
So when Bobby, just driven by simple canine instinct, steals an egg, the community reaches a terrible decision.
Despite the boy's desperate pleas to save him, the community leaders are so cold and efficient in their logic.
Yeah, they just say if Bobby's an egg thief, he's going to threaten other nests, and lo mejor y matarlo.
The best thing is to kill him.
The dog, who would have been protected by law in the city, is executed by hanging in the countryside.
The execution of the last dog on Earth, witnessed by the boy, it feels like the ultimate sacrifice of the world's soul for the sake of biological survival.
And the description of the boy's trauma just elevates this local tragedy to a cosmic one. He observes how a Bobby se le fue achicando la vida hasta convertirse en un temblor colgante que se extendió por la soga, al árbol, la tierra, el mundo, el universo, los sueños, los juegos.
That is so profound. Bobby's life shrank until it became a hanging tremor that extended through the rope, the tree, the world, the universe, the dreams, the games.
The death extends beyond the physical. It consumes the dreams, the games. It just eradicates the boy's innocence and the last little piece of the pre-apocalyptic world's warmth.
It sets such a brutal tone that human survival, in the face of this collapse, requires a ruthless efficiency that just strips away empathy.
And having established that brutal cost of organic survival, the story then shifts dramatically. It bridges the gap between that ruined Earth and the conspiracy theory that governs the entire multiverse.
Exactly. So, having failed to steward their own environment, Báez pivots the narrative to show how humanity has also failed to steward its own past.
Which is where we're introduced to this secret society that's dedicated to manipulating history.
We move from the dirt of Rancho Arriba to this high-tech metafictional layer that's controlled by El Clan de los Profetas, the clan of the prophets.
This section introduces us to Alice, a successful science fiction video game designer. And she's kidnapped and forced to confront this stunning reality. History isn't unfolding randomly. It's being actively designed and engineered by a secret agency, the Clan.
And this agency operates on the belief that the world has been and will always be designed by it. I mean, the arrogance there.
It's incredible. They see their laboratory as art. All artifacts, all future technology, everything. It exists first in books, especially sci-fi, then it moves to film, and finally to video games.
Their whole mission is to ensure the future adheres precisely to the writings of the enlightened ones, the prophets.
It's just a brilliant piece of metafiction. The Clan claims dependency on all the major prophets, religious and secular, Moses, Christ, Buddha.
But also figures like Arthur C. Clarke and Isaac Asimov, whose work they claim they are actively helping bring to fruition.
They're like history's engineering firm, just correcting anomalies to make sure all the predictions are fulfilled.
And the evidence they give is shocking. They guard the prophecies of titans like Homer, Cervantes, Shelley.
But the most striking example they give Alice is Ray Bradbury's There Will Come Soft Rains.
Right. They claim they actively engineered the date of the post-apocalyptic event in that story, August 4th, 2493, to coincide exactly with Mars taking its name from the day of the week, Martes, or Mars.
Their argument is that no writer in the 1900s could have possibly calculated that conjunction by hand.
So they present it as definitive proof of their ongoing control over human evolution. This suggests that sci-fi isn't just foresight. It's a meticulously crafted, millennia-spanning blueprint being followed by a secret agency.
It's just wild.
But wait, if the Klan controlled all of history based on these sci-fi writers, how did they allow a Dominican scientist, Christopher Bazga, to create the one app that wasn't prophesied?
That's it. That is the central catastrophic crisis.
Was their control incomplete? Did they miss something specific to the Caribbean perspective?
The Klan's control was nearly absolute until Bazga created Dakika, the unauthorized application. The agent explains that Bazga's creation, which was intended as a blessing for the human species by preserving all history, is the primary cause of the current chaos, precisely because it was not in the script.
Okay, let's get into the mechanics of Takika, because this is where the source material gets dense, but it's brilliant. It's a virtual time machine.
A virtual time machine that reconstructs history from sound waves. And this is apparently based on an obscure ancient Russian theory the agreement of time.
So think of it as the ultimate sonic surveillance state.
Pretty much. The theory posits that the voices, the steps, the sounds produced by every single living being travel eternally as waves through space.
So by shortening the wavelength distance, Takika can create a complete sound map over the Earth's atmosphere and virtually reconstruct any moment in the past.
Every conversation, every footstep, every utterance, nothing is ever truly gone. It's just traveling as waves.
Bazga originally designed this to create an authentic anthology of literature by collecting all the conversations of people linked to letters, giving them physical form in the multiverse.
But the threat is immediate and terrifying. The agent warns Alice that Takika is designed to take over all other applications' AI and distort time.
By allowing users to change the past, Bazga's creation allows for digital chaos that's driven by the absolute worst human instincts.
Exactly. The agent warns, ya nada será verdad. Cada quien podrá hacer su versión del pasado. Es terrible.
Nothing will be true anymore. Everyone will be able to make their own version of the past. It's terrible.
The fear isn't that the world will end. It's that it will not end as science fiction has predicted. They're losing control of the narrative.
So the most profound threat to history isn't a foreign invasion or a nuclear war. It's petty digital meanness. It's using high technology for low human envy.
And we see that immediately with the first crime by an app.
Yeah.
The virtual murder of Victor Hugo.
This is just dark satire. Hugo, who is still alive in reality, was eliminated online on February 28, 1825. That's 60 years before his official death.
And the motive was purely mundane and petty. He cluttered Takika with his massive, verbose descriptions of Paris.
And he insulted Anne McCaffrey, a writer the Klan deemed untouchable.
Yeah, he suggested she should continue cooking.
So the resulting virtual crime is brutal. In the group chat, you have literary figures like St. Francis of Assisi, the Apostle Peter, and others conspiring to torture and kill him in the crypt of Notre Dame.
He gets even more specific. Helena of Troy starts skinning his enormous belly with a virtual Gillette.
It's insane, and the consequence is that this event establishes the era of virtual crime.
Upon his digital elimination, the updates erased all his memories of the multiverse, Takika, and the net.
And all his masterpieces, Les Miserables, Notre Dame de Paris, are erased from the multiverse. They did not get to exist.
And the cover-up. They blame two fictional characters, two bakers named Jean Valjean and Javert Muriel, who allegedly killed him by confusion.
It's this absurd, deceitful rewriting of history at the hands of jealous digital peers.
And this illustrates the terrifying scope of Takika. The power to rewrite cultural heritage at the whim of bored or envious users.
So the Klan needs Alice, the sci-fi expert, to use superior alien technology, which they promise to reveal, to create a video game that can successfully displace Takika and restore the prophesied timeline.
The fight to save reality is now happening in the gaming world.
It's incredible. The people who engineered history are suddenly victims of a runaway application, proving that no matter how sophisticated your technology is, you just cannot account for human pettiness.
And that technological hubris leads us directly to the ruined, controlled society that birthed Bazga in the first place.
The society we're about to examine is the product of catastrophic public health failures.
Right, following multiple COVID outbreaks, from COVID-19 all the way through COVID-29, the Dominican Republic and much of the world entered this state of prolonged isolation described as después del muro, or after the wall.
And this wasn't a temporary lockdown. The quarantine became almost total for 35 years.
Can you imagine? An entire generation raised in total confinement, strictly forbidden to go outside.
Physical contact became not just medically risky, but culturally feared. This produced a society where all life is digital and the physical world has been neglected or forgotten.
The physical environment itself was aggressively purged. Polluting artifacts like the 2014 Ford Mustang were removed from the streets and even wiped from cultural memory.
Replaced by silent flying drones and motorcycle transports?
The whole culture shifts. People live in fear of the outside, addicted to their digital screens, terrified of contamination.
But the control is much more intimate than just movement. The government mandates the weekly administration of a drug called Vecture.
And initially, it's presented as necessary for disease control and combating sedentism, which is a huge problem after 35 years indoors. But the sources reveal its true sinister function.
Controlling the birth rate.
Exactly. This is the government's chilling solution for environmental restoration. Managed population collapse via mandatory bioweekly chemical control.
As one character's daughter notes, what they really care about is controlling the birth rate, their way of restoring the planet.
Extreme longevity is common. We see characters nearing 300 years old, but reproduction is strictly regulated. The state is willing to sacrifice fundamental human drives for planetary sustainability.
And the psychological toll of this isolation and control is explored so powerfully in that story. Después del muro, the father, he's haunted by his confinement.
Right, and he takes his 14-year-old son outside for the first time on his birthday, which is this dangerous, potentially drone-baiting feat.
He risks annihilation just to share the sensory experience of the pre-digital world.
He finds his hidden Mustang and takes his son on this joyride, a forbidden, noisy, physical act.
He's clinging to the wheel, telling his son, I won't escape the past, go to hell, I don't want a world without cars, without noise, without life.
And this desperate attachment to the visceral, organic past is so strong it kills him. He dies shortly after, back in his room, unable to return to the digital prison.
And this manufactured, sterile society gives us a powerful lens to view the value of art and intellectual life in the story Asimov.
The scene is set in Quisqueya Stadium. Isaac Asimov, representing the intellectual pillar of the old world, is just sitting in the stands reading science fiction.
And the crowd, the entire digitized country, is paralyzed, watching a baseball headed straight for his head.
Anticipating this potential death, which they've dubbed Asimov la muerte más esperada, the most expected death.
The satire here is just savage. No one cares about the suspended baseball game. The entire country is glued to their screens watching the potential spectacle of a major intellectual failure dying.
The narrative explicitly tells us that in Quisqueya nobody cared about literature. The phenomenon created viral applications dedicated to his anticipated demise.
And the journalist, Flake, he eventually realizes Asimov's brilliant, cynical strategy for choosing the Dominican Republic as his hiding spot.
What better place for a writer to hide than a country where they don't read?
It's a brutal self-assessment of a future society where morbid, easily digestible digital spectacle, even the trajectory of a baseball, trumps quiet, reflective, intellectual engagement.
And as we kind of saw in the earlier section, there's this immediate hint that Asimov's near-death experience is more than just bad luck.
Right, when he leaps out of the way, he feels a strange pain in his neck.
Suggesting he, too, is a recipient of that alien life implant, linking his prophetic ability to extraterrestrial influence. It implies that intellectual genius is a dangerous alien infection in this digitally controlled world.
This sterile, controlled existence inevitably destroys personal relationships.
Which brings us to the story of El Catudor, the tattoo artist, who travels the universe for his work but finds his ultimate pain at home.
The tattooer commits suicide after completing a contract, and his despair is rooted in his partner's profound betrayal.
She prioritizes her friends and, more devastatingly, starts a new relationship with a robot named Barbie Kid.
A high-end, efficient machine replacement that the tattooer had actually ordered himself. The irony.
The pain of being substituted by an efficient machine just captures the cultural anxiety of technological replacement perfectly.
And the tattooer's final recorded words connect identity, race, and culture to this new digital emotional vacuum. He laments.
Estás dolido de que te sustituya o de que sea por una robot. Un negro dominicano nacido y criado en el campo jamás soportará que su mujer le pegue los cuernos con una maldita máquina.
Are you hurt because I replaced you, or because it was with a robot? A Dominican black man, born and raised in the countryside, will never tolerate his woman cheating on him with a damn machine.
That quote is the thematic gut punch of this whole section. It's not just about cheating, it's about the erosion of organic, traditional identity by the sterile, hyper-efficient technology this society has embraced.
Technology may have allowed them to escape the wall, but it hasn't solved the core human problems of envy, replacement, and heartbreak.
And this sense of loss and moral decay explains why this society, having ruined its home planet through avarice, is now forced to become universal colonizers.
Which sets the stage for the book's cosmic reach.
The irony is so powerful. The nation that failed to steward its own tropical paradise now becomes the dominant space power.
The source material really emphasizes this. Dominicans are the ones who take full advantage of the last resources of the island and the planet to achieve this status.
They're running vast space agencies like the IDAPP, the Dominican Institute of Private Public Aviation.
And we follow this key narrative thread involving Dr. Williams, a scientist who's nearly 300 years old.
Representing the extreme longevity possible in this future. He leads a perilous 4-year colonization mission to Saturn, and he's driven, in part, by the memory of his partner, Molly.
The mission is to explore Saturn, a gaseous and stormy planet battered by winds up to 2,000 kilometers per hour, to establish a human community there.
which is symbolically named Molly. This just showcases a radical shift in global power, where the Dominican Republic has successfully leveraged remaining technology and human ingenuity to project power across the galaxy.
But the cosmos proves to be just as unforgiving as the ruined Earth.
The book's theme of unsolved, devastating mysteries reappears with Molly's vanishing act. She just evaporates while collecting water samples in the southern canyons.
And they search for her endlessly with high-tech drones and specialized teams, using these miniature robotic bees invented by a character named Juan.
And the backstory of Juan, the inventor of those sophisticated drone bees, links back powerfully to the Taquica section.
Oh, that's right. Juan created these tiny robots to expiate his guilt over failing to save his former roommate, Mary Bazga, who was brutally raped and murdered.
He later used those same bees, which were capable of operating inside a body, to murder Mary's 4 rapists in separate jail cells. He realized technology could provide the brutal justice the system couldn't.
That narrative layer is fascinating. The genius technology being used for colonizing space is directly rooted in human emotional guilt and high-tech vigilante justice.
So Juan's participation in the Saturn mission, the search for Molly, is his attempt to pay his debt to humanity for his sin.
But despite all this high-tech searching, the entire colony, which was established by the agronomist Pablo Prieto, the hero of Rancho Arriba,
He's back.
he's back. It eventually vanishes without a trace after Dr. Williams leaves. Molly's disappearance remains the biggest mystery of the universe population for decades.
And it leaves behind only this cryptic phrase, Grituan Jampu, which is welcome everyone in Saturnian code.
Yeah.
The universe, it seems, actively resists human colonization.
And this resistance leads us to the ultimate reveal. This advanced extraterrestrial civilization, the Rhytidal, from the planet Rhytide, orbiting the star Amenistad.
Alice is exposed to them when she's taken away in the giant Planetaria ship, which is the clan's headquarters.
Their society is centuries beyond humanity's aberration. Their cities are superposed, layered by specialty technicians, informaticians.
And they rely on incredibly clean solar-based energy and anti-gravity transports that look like flying blue gelatin. They travel through wormholes, which Alice describes as spatial bugs.
They also possess these incomprehensible abilities. We meet Estevea, who can split time and dimensions, and Lovia, who can see millions of years into the future.
And the Colonel explains that the Rhytidal are studying humanity. They know all our languages, even the dead ones, but their consensus is damning.
They find Earth hostile.
And our technology is an aberration that will not evolve much in 10,000 years.
Ouch. And this brings us back to Earth's history and art in the story El Último Cineasta, The Last Filmmaker.
The Rhytidal's direct intervention on Earth is revealed through a letter found by the father of Gio, a Dominican filmmaker.
The Rhytidal, specifically a lineage called the Chiricahua, were facing extinction due to a genetic mutation.
And their solution was desperate. They needed to transfer their life plant, a neuronal implant shaped like a jellyfish that transfers specialized knowledge to a new, compatible host species.
And Earth, specifically Paris, was the only compatible environment they found.
So the Rhytia planted this biological memory stick in human artists, cineastes, or filmmakers, to ensure the survival of their documentation lineage.
This implies that much of Earth's greatest art and science, from Guido's cinematic creations to the prophetic writings of Asimov, is nothing more than a desperate alien data transfer.
The Rhytidal intentionally leave behind cryptic clues and what humans mistake for primitive art or lost civilizations, just enough guidance for a true seeker.
The implication is devastating. Our entire cultural achievement is not self-made. It's a manipulated, temporary, and ultimately failing data backup engineered by beings who find us fundamentally flawed.
And Alice's final realization is that the clan orchestrated her encounter with the Rhytale so she could use this superior alien knowledge and technology to successfully create a video game powerful enough to displace the Rogue to Kika app.
The ultimate struggle to save human history requires both alien intervention and the mastery of contemporary cultural forms.
This complex layering, from the brutal agrarian tragedy of Rancho Arriba through the manipulation of history to the ultimate realization of cosmic insignificance, creates a truly rich, demanding text that uses the Dominican experience as a vital, if tragic, center of the universe's future.
Before we move to our final thought, I think we need to zoom out and fully appreciate the extent of the cultural destruction and the price of knowledge that Báez lays out in that after-the-wall era.
Absolutely. This scarcity of cultural artifacts becomes a central theme. We have the story of Branky, el recolector de películas, the film collector.
He's risking his life in these desolate, sun-scorched cities, dodging gigantic, possibly bioengineered snakes just to collect old hard drives containing films.
This act of physical preservation, risking one's life for obsolete digital files, shows that in the post-apocalyptic future, basic human cultural history has become an endangered species.
Branky is literally a seeker of the past, echoing that alien idea that only a true seeker will find the clues they left behind.
And this ties back to the idea of longevity. That long lifespan of nearly 300 years doesn't bring wisdom. It just prolongs human flaws, as we see in Dr. Williams' 30-year obsession with Molly.
The pursuit of life extension through Vexor and a digital existence has simply prolonged the suffering and the avarice. It hasn't elevated the spirit.
Even death is radically altered. While the ride-will die after thousands of years in a way so pleasant that others are grateful for their departure, humans either linger in their digital existence or face the brutal physical eradication we saw in the Catuador's suicide or the father's death in the Mustang.
The world has traded spiritual depth for a sterile, controlled biological endurance.
Báez consistently contrasts the pure humans, those resisting implants, with the implanted, digitally adulterated population. The tatuador's confession about being a negro dominicano nacido y criado en el campo emphasizes a desperate clinging to organic, traditional identity in the face of a technological future that favors the artificial and the highly controlled.
This constant tension between the raw, physical survival of Rancho Arriba and the highly sterile, controlled life of the multiverse is the engine of the book's critique.
It really is.
We have completed our deep dive into Rodolfo Báez's Bazga, an essential contribution to post-apocalyptic Dominican science fiction.
Synthesizing this entire discussion for you, we find that Bazga offers three devastating core warnings. First, environmental collapse forces brutal, painful choices, demonstrating that organic life, symbolized by the last dog Bobby, is always the ultimate sacrifice of human avarice.
Second, high technology is no cure for low human flaws. The AI catastrophe, Takika, didn't arise from a bug in the code, but from petty envy, the desire to digitally assassinate Victor Hugo because he was annoying.
Right. And similarly, the tattoo artist's suicide reveals technology only amplifies human heartbreak by creating perfectly efficient, emotionless substitutes.
And finally, human achievement is not necessarily self-made. The implication that our greatest art, whether it's prophetic writing or cinema, is merely an engineered data transfer by a superior, disgusted alien life, the Rydell and their life plant, is perhaps the deepest indictment of our species' capacity for genuine progress.
Báez is telling us that whether we are colonizing Saturn or censoring history in a group chat, the ultimate problem is the perennial, destructive nature of humanity itself.
And that leads us to a final, provocative thought for you to carry forward, rooted in the incredible concept behind the Takika application.
If the voices, steps, and sounds of every living being travel eternally as waves through space, constituting an eternal, unerasable sound map of our existence, then is the real challenge of the future not reaching new planets, but simply ensuring that the historical record, the sonic legacy we leave behind on Earth, is worth listening to.
An absolutely stunning question to ponder as we close out this inaugural literary deep dive. If you found this discussion valuable, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and share this deep dive with others who might be curious about the emerging literary voices in speculative fiction, especially those flipping the traditional narratives of colonialism and apocalypse.
And if you are an author, or you know an author working on a book that warrants this kind of deep analysis, particularly in speculative fiction or related genres, we formally invite you to send us your material. We would love to continue exploring the groundbreaking work coming from the Caribbean and beyond in future deep dives.
Until next time, keep reading, keep thinking, and keep diving deep into the knowledge. Goodbye.